Elvis performed more than 1,000 concerts from 1969 until his death in 1977, crisscrossing the United States again and again, filling arenas and stadiums. They say he never played to an unsold seat. Critics, though, have always said that the last few years were less than stellar for Elvis. He was overweight, he was addicted to prescription drugs, but still had enough drawing power that a television special was planned for later that year. Now, a number of shows were recorded in June of 1977. And as it turns out, that would be Elvis's last concert tour. He was scheduled to appear in Portland, Maine on August 17th, but died at home the day before. Now, our guest tonight played a key role in the production of that television special, which was called simply Elvis in Concert. We're delighted to welcome acclaimed filmmaker Annett Wolf to the program tonight. I want to thank you so much for coming in tonight, Annett.
Thank you for having me.
You were already an established documentary and filmmaker when you were approached about this project. So what was going through your mind when they offered you a chance to work with Elvis Presley?
Not so much.
Not so much?
Because I wasn't a fan of his.
Really?
I was Miles Davis and Frank Sinatra and those kind of gentlemen.
Not your kind of music?
No, it wasn't. And then, of course, the record company sent over a humongous big box with all his recordings. And I sat there listening to record after record. Not before I got to the Gospels did I fall in love with Elvis.
Interesting. So you were responsible for a lot of the behind-the-scenes footage that was shot for this television special. And early on, you had a run-in with Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's legendary manager. Tell us about that.
Well, it was a rather bizarre moment in my life. We were all standing waiting for him to turn up in the arena, and they were all setting up for tonight's show. And he would turn up with this cigar, chewing on this very weird cigar, and everybody stood, you know, frozen, actually. And that was the producers, and that was CBS, the honchos from CBS, everybody froze. And I didn't know him, and I hadn't paid a lot of attention to who he really was. And I always said, Colonel? Really? Where did that come from? And my crew and I, we were sort of standing to the left of what was happening, and he turned up and he looked at everybody, and then he zoomed in on me. And he said, oh, you're the lady. I said, I think so. And he said, now you listen very, very, very carefully to me, lady. You are not allowed to do anything, nothing with Elvis except I tell you and give you permission. You are not allowed to call him, you are not allowed to talk to him, your crew and you are not allowed anywhere near him without my permission. Do you understand that, lady?
Sounds pretty clear.
And everybody was sort of waiting for me to react, and they thought I was going to be humble and nice and say, well, of course, Colonel Parker. So I said, excuse me, is your name Colonel Parker? And he said, yeah, and chewed away on the cigar. And I said, well, my name is Annett Wolf, and I am a lady. And everybody thought, now it's going to cost us millions of dollars. The man is going to walk off. He's going to take Elvis with him. But he just took one look at me and chewed hysterically on this cigar butt he had and turned around and walked away.
Interesting.
From that moment on, he called me every morning at 7 o'clock and said, it's me. This is what you can do today.
Fascinating. You've said that one of the most poignant moments for you was shooting Elvis backstage, just prior to going on stage. Tell us a little bit about that sequence.
Well, it became a very poignant moment. My cameraman and I, we were very close, and we'd worked together for many years at that time. Don Stern, who was a magnificent cameraman. He and I, we decided that we would walk with Elvis to the stage entrance. So Don walked backwards, and I held him around him to make sure that he didn't fall or stumble over something. And we walked very slowly backwards, as Elvis at that time had grown accustomed to us, and he liked us. So he trusted us. So he just kept on walking, and we kept on being very close around him. And then when he got to the stairs leading up to the stage, he stopped, and we were very close on him. And he reached out for his Coca-Cola, took a sip, and handed it out. And then the makeup artist did a little bit of last finishing off with his makeup. And then he bowed his head and prayed.
Prayed.
And that was, of course, the moment where we were very, very close. And then he lifted his head, made that sign of his, and off he went.
Off he went.
And that became probably a very, very important moment because it showed everybody that he was a devout Christian.
And a lot more humble, maybe, than people would think, because he was so supremely confident on the stage.
He was very, very lovely and a very kind man.
So you would see him regularly during this 2-week period. What would you talk about with Elvis?
We didn't talk. We had this little thing going on that I was still a redhead in those days, not an old lady with white hair, but I was a redhead. And he would always recognize the camera and me next to the camera. So he would come always towards me and you said, "Hello, darling."
Hello.
And I would say, "Hello, Elvis." And then he would give me a little squeeze of my hand and then walk away.
And walk away. I have to ask you this, and I know you've been asked this before, and we know it's well documented. He was abusing a lot of drugs at this time. We know he was taking thousands of prescription pills. Did you ever see him take anything?
No.
No.
I can categorically say no. When we were together, whenever we were allowed by Colonel Parker to shoot whatever we were doing, he was always there. He was either rehearsing, or he was coming out of his limousine, or he was...
He never seemed to be strung out?
No,
no.
no.
Okay.
The only time I realized that something was wrong with him was at one of the concerts, I can't remember which one, but he suddenly forgot some of his lines.
Some of the lyrics, yeah. And there were moments of pure brilliance in those shows. Even
I heard from people who are Elvis aficionados that they said that his voice had never been more beautiful.
very rich and powerful.
Especially when he sang his gospels. That was the moment I think that he was close to God, he was close to his mother, and of course he always said this thing, I mean, the one woman who meant the most to him in his life is his mother.
You told me that you got the sense later, in retrospect, that he almost seemed ready to go.
I think so. I think he was there for everybody else, and he kept on putting on a brave face. I think he was tired. I think he was, that good old English word, weary.
Weary.
He was weary.
Over the years, the Elvis estate has released mountains of material, unreleased material, yet they've held off on releasing the entire Elvis in concert performance. They've always said Elvis was sick, the implication being we don't really want people to remember him that way. As someone who worked on that program, do you think it should have been released or should be released now, 40 years later?
Well, I was showing clips mainly from my part of the show in Bad Nauheim last year in front of, I think, maybe was it 1,000 or 1,500 Elvis Presley fans. They all loved every minute of it. And they all said, yes, he was overweight. Yes, he was sweaty. Yes, he was maybe not remembering his lyrics or whatever. But it didn't matter because the dynamic that came from this man and the love that they showed him still 40 years later in Bad Nauheim, I think that what CBS should have done originally, they should have simply said, okay, let's cut the show. Let's make it shorter. Let's take the best, and I had already told them which angles I thought was good enough, and then fill it up with more of our documentary material, make it more like a day in Elvis's life on tour.
Right. Yeah.
Then they could have done it, but it was too late, and they didn't. And the concert footage, a lot of it was unusable.
And it's most of it's on YouTube now, anyway. In
It
various
is.
versions
It is.
yeah,
And I don't know. I think that I don't know what CBS is doing to celebrate him this time of the 40 years after his death. I know that HBO, I heard, has they have produced a very, very big documentary about him. But I think that the time is gone. The time has passed. I think this is a moment in Elvis's and my life, actually, where two people who didn't know each other, who never got to know each other, but who had an understanding of mutual respect. And I will always respect him, and I will always remember him as this kind, wonderful man who had so much humanity.
Will the world ever get tired of hearing about Elvis Presley, do you think?
Unless we blow up within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I think that Elvis will always be Elvis.
He'll always
And he will remain an icon, beloved.
Perfect place to leave it. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, Annett.
Thank you.
Annett Wolf is a world-acclaimed filmmaker and producer who also happened to be with Elvis Presley during his final concert tour in June of 1977.